All right, this video is about evolution,
Woohoo!
the basics of evolution, and we're going to talk a little bit about some of the evidence that is used to back up this theory.
Down to
Because
it.
evidence is important for a theory.
Heck
Now,
yeah.
helping me out today is Mr. Harkins.
Hey guys,
Some of you had him last year as a teacher.
I apologize.
Most of you did not.
You're lucky.
Here we go. So evolution, in its most basic definition, is a change in species over time. When I say
Okay.
species, I mean a big group of organisms, not an individual. So you growing over the course of your life, that is not evolution.
So I will never evolve.
Right.
You will never evolve. You don't evolve.
Right. It
But
doesn't-
as a population,
Yeah.
we might.
It
Animals,
doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't happen in a lifetime. It happens
Yes.
over a long, long period of
So
time.
it's multiple generations.
Many generations.
Okay.
Yeah. And the theory states that all modern organisms have descended from organisms that were on the planet previously.
Okay.
Nothing has just randomly showed up and had no descendants.
Poof,
Yeah,
spontaneously just
exactly.
appeared.
Yeah, that
Okay.
has not happened.
So it's a long process.
Now, the process of new species establishing themselves through evolution is called speciation. That's when a new species is formed.
Okay.
Now, there are two terms that are used sometimes. They're getting to the point where they're slightly outdated, but we'll go over it anyway.
Okay.
Microevolution is the change in allele frequency in a population over time, meaning how often a certain gene is expressed. Now, this doesn't create a new species,
Okay.
but it can change maybe how often like A-type blood allele is expressed in a certain
Or
population.
would it be like blue eyes or brown eyes
Sure,
or black
yeah.
hair or blonde hair or like a cow with like spots as opposed
Sure.
to like one big brown saddle or different things like
Or,
that?
or even say you have a population of like wolves that goes to a area that is blaze orange, and you have like an orange coat allele, and that group of wolves, suddenly you see that even through natural selection,
Yes.
that shows up more frequently, but they can still reproduce with other wolves, and you haven't created a new
So
species.
they're still the same
That's
species,
still
you just have some
microevolution.
advantages there, and then they'll get selected
Yeah.
more because they'll hunt better and reproduce better because they're better fed
Yeah.
and more fit.
Frequently, we don't see major adaptations with microevolution.
Okay, so micro's tiny.
I mean, there are little adaptations that can happen, like the one I gave. But
Yeah.
when you start to see new species and major adaptations, that's when you talk about macroevolution. So that's large-scale change.
Big.
Yeah, that happens over a long period of time. So I want to do this kind of quickly, but
Okay.
I want to show my students that natural selection isn't the only way evolution happens. There's something called genetic drift, and this more causes microevolution.
Okay.
It's when you have a small population, and let's say, for example, like an example of real life, you have the Cajun population. There's a high incidence of Tay-Sachs
Tay-Sachs,
disease,
yeah.
and that's not even an advantageous thing. That's
No,
bad because your
no.
baby dies after.
So genetic drift is just random. It could be
Right.
good, could be
Yeah.
could be nothing.
So it's
just,
thought that how that arose, was you had like a few carriers, and we're talking only very small amount of people in the population originally.
Okay, so kind of an isolated
that migrate-
population.
Yeah, isolated population, and they all just happen to pass that trait down to their children. So suddenly you have this not large generation, but this generation of, I don't know, 20 to 100 individuals. That's
Okay.
a large amount of carriers, as opposed to maybe elsewhere in the human population you don't see that.
Yeah.
You would expect
And then
to
as
see
they reproduce, they
yeah.
pass that on.
If that population stays isolated, you're going to see a very large incidence of that gene.
Yes.
Okay. Now, am I going to hold my students responsible for knowing genetic drift?
You should. You're not gonna.
I'm
are
probably
you?
not going to.
He's not gonna.
But I wanted to sort of show that evolution can happen in more ways than just
Yeah, there's
natural
more.
selection.
We're not
And there's
going to
even more
cover
than this.
everything
Yeah.
here, but it's just to give you a nice background, a view from 30,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So
Exactly. So another way that a gene pool can change, although this happens because of humans, is
Yeah.
artificial selection. So this is when human breeders actually choose the parents that will breed. So I have my dog here because we breed dogs. Now my dog's actually mixed breed and kind of an idiot, as you can tell by that picture. She chewed her way through a cage. But the reason we see so much variation in dogs is because we have artificially selected
Yep.
which things are going to survive. So the humans have provided selective pressure,
Yes.
which is something required in natural selection, and forced that gene pool to change.
Yeah, they've chosen the two parents and got them together to make puppies in the case of dogs, and the resulting puppies will be an amalgam or a combination of some of the traits from each parent. So that's been chosen where maybe in the wild you're not going to see a pit bull and a chihuahua suddenly fall
Right.
in love and make babies.
Right. And funny mental picture. But
Yeah.
we've also done this with a lot of our crops, actually.
Yes.
So like almost all peppers are descended from the same species.
Yep.
We've just made them so many different varieties, just like dogs.
Yeah,
but we've selected
and
things that we've wanted. So
Yep.
now, does this prove that evolution can happen? No, because we're intentionally manipulating. It's almost like a lab experiment.
Yeah.
But it does show that it is possible to manipulate a gene pool.
It shows the mechanism exists,
Yeah.
that you can work the mechanism, you can make the machine do these things.
Yeah, you can make a population change genetically.
Yes.
Yeah. So here's some of the evidence
Okay.
for evolution. Some of the harder evidence rather than just like the artificial selection.
Well, yeah,
It's kinda
theory's
like,
no good without evidence. If
Right.
it can't be supported by evidence, it's not a theory.
Right. So anyway, the first thing, and we've been looking at this for a while in terms
Yes,
of
this is older.
Yeah, this is one of the oldest things used to support evolutionary theory is what's called homologous structures. Now, homologous structures are characteristics that you see in a group of organisms that it appears to have been inherited from a common ancestor.
Okay.
So the example I have here is if you look at an alligator arm,
Okay.
a human arm, a bat wing,
Yay for bats.
and a penguin
Flipper.
Now, at first glance, they look very similar, and they're used for different things.
Yeah.
But if you actually look at the anatomy of those, you would notice they have the same exact bones.
Yeah, like on the outside, they don't look anything alike. Maybe like I honestly think like a bat wing and a human hand look quite a bit alike, other than, like the skin
Yeah, it's
stretched
just-
in between here is much more exaggerated in a
Yeah.
bat. But a penguin, an alligator, I mean, the way
Yeah.
they're built, the way the digits
Yeah.
are splayed out, they're very different.
Yeah.
But if you dissected them and looked at the underlying structures
Mm-hmm.
of those, you're going to find homologous bones all the way throughout. That
Yep.
the bats, the digits here, the metacarpals and that may be longer for a bat.
Phalanges,
Yeah, the phalanges maybe on a penguin, they're going to be closer and more fused
Yeah.
and right along next to each other more.
So, yeah, it should be said the bones themselves can be a little different.
Yeah.
But the actual
But it's a
bone
one-for-one
groups,
kind of
there-
relationship
There's
and a
always
connection.
a humerus, a large bone
Yep.
starting the structure.
And
There's
radius and
always
ulna.
radius and ulna, two bones
Yep.
here. So, and we're not just picking and choosing four examples. We're talking this is all reptiles, all
Yeah,
birds,
all birds
all
and all mammals.
It might be amphibians. I'm not confident enough to go on the record with it.
Can't say for
but-
sure on their structures on
Yeah,
that, but there's definitely a common ancestor somewhere along the line that had these traits. Because
Yeah.
otherwise, I mean, why would that similarity even possibly show up? Like
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
if they're all just going to have different limbs and different digits.
Yeah. So since virtually everything with these appendages has the same, this
Yeah,
gonna
this-
be,
this is the
that's
universal
gonna
symbol
be gift
for
or something.
appendages.
But anyway, so
I can only hope.
yeah. But anyway, since they all have the same exact bone structure,
Yeah.
it's all incredibly likely that it all came from one common ancestor that had that structure.
Yeah.
In fact, for that to randomly happen, that every single organism just happens to have the same
Yeah.
exact bone group.
Hundreds
when
of
these
thousands
things
of
ran-
organisms
is
all to
com-
have the exact same
yeah.
structures is you have a
Incredibly
better
unlikely.
chance of winning the big game like 5 times in the lottery in a row.
Yeah.
Like it's just
Oh man,
not,
I'd love if that happened, but
that would be neat.
yeah. But anyway, so
Let's look at analogous.
yeah,
structures.
analogous structures are structures that have a common function but a different structure. So it's kind of the opposite of homologous.
Okay.
So like a bird wing and a butterfly wing. They're both wings. Now, this idea does not say that the bird and the butterfly are related.
No.
That's not what these are used to show. What it's used to show is that when things live and have similar selective pressures, they will adapt similar characteristics.
Yes.
So it was advantageous for both of these to be able to fly.
Yeah. Now the way they go about, like the structures that actually cause them to be able to fly, are different. But what it shows, though, is that the mechanism of change, when facilitated by some kind of environmental stress, some kind of pressure there over multiple generations,
Yeah.
will affect the same kind of adaptations over time. So
Right.
you'll have wings form to be able to fly, to get higher off the ground or whatever.
Right.
Okay, cool. Let's look at these guys.
Now, my favorite, vestigial structures. These are structures that they're sort of like remainders leftover. They're leftovers.
yeah, they're kind of on the decline
Yeah.
of usefulness
Yeah.
for the organism.
So they're usually a little smaller. They've lost their original function over time.
yeah,
So,
original function. They could
yeah.
still have a function.
Yeah. So like we say wings and flightless birds, but penguins use them as flippers.
Yeah.
And ostriches actually use them to balance when they run.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, famous one in humans is the appendix. So the appendix, once upon a time, actually was helpful in helping us fight infection from
We have
all
really
the terrible
dirty
food we were
food
eating. Yeah.
and-
Now we're talking. This might have even been before we were officially humans, Homo sapiens.
Yeah. Oh
This might have
yeah.
been
This would.
long ago. But at some point we started figuring out how to cook food, take care of our food,
bacteria, build better immune
and we're still
systems.
talking. This is millions of years ago,
Yes,
but
yes.
you know, either way, started to figure out how to make that a little irrelevant. So over time, maybe in a small population, there was someone who had a mutation that caused the body to divert less energy into the appendix and more energy towards some other thing that might have allowed advantages for survival.
Well, yeah, because then they could use that energy to do other things,
Right.
which would give them maybe a reproductive advantage, a survival
Right.
advantage, because you're not burning up energy on some organ that doesn't really do anything
Right.
good for you anymore. So
Yeah.
you're slightly more fit.
It's actually disadvantageous to put
To have
energy
a
into
good-
something you
yeah.
don't need.
That's why trees drop their leaves in the winter.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty. We'll talk about more vestigial structures in humans later.
Tell them about the hip bones in whales when you get in class. They'll love that one.
Oh, we will.
It's cool.
But this actually applies to genes also. We actually have a gene, all primates do, that helps produce vitamin C, but it's slightly mutated.
Are you talking about L-gulano
Yeah.
lactone oxidase?
Yeah, I know how to
I
say
was
that
just
last
thinking
one.
off the top of my head.
But yeah, it's mutated in primates, and it's thought because, you know, primates started eating fruit long ago and getting vitamin
Yeah.
C, so it was disadvantageous to be putting energy into
We
making
could get
this
off the
enzyme.
ground, climb up, and
Yeah.
grab the oranges, grab the lemons
Yeah.
and the limes. So
So-
there's no use to have that enzyme.
Yeah, and the reason these are important to evolutionary theory is because why would we have useless shriveled structures inside our body, especially the appendix, which does get infected, as I can tell you all about.
Yeah,
it's
like-
very painful and could kill you.
Yeah.
Why would this stuff still be there unless it previously served a purpose in an old
Yeah, if we were
descendant?
just suddenly
If
like
humans have always been the way it is, that means
exactly
we've-
like we are,
that
then
means
why
we've
would we
always
have,
had this appendix that is, once again, almost kills you.
Yeah, those kind of
Up
things.
until
like,
100 years ago was guaranteed to kill you, basically.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely.
So now embryology is this is actually what Darwin considered to be the strongest case for strongest
Yeah, this
evidence
was a
for
breakthrough
evolution.
at the time in that.
So if you look at embryos, you'll notice that almost all vertebrate embryos look very, very similar early on in development.
Ugly little weird bug-eyed critters.
But yeah, not only that, later in development, organisms start to show features that they will not show later in life that old ancestor might have shown. So for example, it's thought all vertebrates evolved from some primitive form of fish.
Okay.
Maybe not even that similar looking to what the fish are now.
No, but something that
they
lived
had gills,
in water
right?
and had
so
gills.
you
and-
see human embryos have gills early on in development, okay?
Yes.
You also see tails.
Tails, yeah.
And also, about 6 months into a pregnancy, a baby will show a big layer of fur,
A huge amount.
like
of
our
fuzzy,
primate,
yeah,
our
body
primate
hair and fur.
ancestors. So
And you're trying to say then so that multiple different types of animals, as they go through their changes as an embryo, will show a lot of these similar stages all the way through there. So humans, our development in the embryonic stages will show very similar physiological traits to like other organisms like chickens and frogs and turtles as they develop.
It would make no sense to show those things too because they don't have any advantage. Like, why would you need fur in the womb? Because it's all right in 98.6 degrees.
It's
in there,
genes
right?
turning on and off and things like that causing the development. Yeah.
Yep. So anyway, finally, we now like to look a lot at molecular evidence, meaning really, really small scale stuff.
Yep.
Specifically, two kind of different points. One is all life is based off of the same, almost
Same
universal.
code, same kind of blueprint, same kind of Lego building blocks.
Everyone
it's
runs off
amazing.
ATCG, right?
Yep.
And we all use DNA polymerase. We all use.
I mean,
we all
that
use the
would
same enzymes.
suggest a very similar common origin there if you have all this basic at the fundamental level, how it's all built.
Something very early on used all those different, that whole system,
Yep.
and that's what
And the combination
has been passed down to all descendants. But furthermore, what we use DNA sequences now in order to show how closely related certain organisms are.
Yes.
So it makes sense that gorillas would have more DNA in common with us.
Yes.
And if you actually look at the DNA, you'd be right. You notice there's only one amino acid difference in human hemoglobin and gorilla hemoglobin, while you look at something that's more further related, like lampreys, and it's lots of differences. So anyway, we're actually going to look at that
gorilla
closely in
blood
class.
transfusion, can we? I'm not going to get gorilla super
No,
strength either.
I would not advise them.
So close.
Anyway, so that is it. Enjoy your day.
Later.